Welcome everyone, Shabbat Shalom. Naim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Naim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Naim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Naim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Naim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. La 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 la. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. La 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 la. Hine ma tov Naim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine ma tov Naim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As we come in, and Shabbat Shalom to those of you who are watching us at home. We're so happy to be with you. Shabbat Shalom, Cantor.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Yeah.
So this is like the first of a kickoff of a series of events we're going to be doing at the temple in support of the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian Jewish community, the Ukrainian people at large. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some really interesting facts about Jews and the Ukraine and Jewish Ukrainians, and how some you'll be surprised to know. And we're also going to hear some music by some Jewish Ukrainian composers, liturgical music and Hasidic music. And next week, which will be at Irma's campus, we're going to do more with maybe classical, a violinist playing some Jewish Ukrainian music. And then in 2 weeks, and I'm telling you now because I'm going to pound it into you for the next 2 weeks, instead of Purim, on March 20th, we are going to be having a stand-up to a modern-day Haman classical music concert with musicians from our own congregation who are musicians in the Los Angeles Philharmonic, who have played with Yo-Yo Ma, Silk Road Ensemble, who have played with the Kirov and the Bolshoi Ballet. We'll be telling you more, but it'll be a fundraiser. We're sending money to HIAS, which is for all refugees. As we know, as of today, there are 1 million Ukrainian refugees, and I can only imagine in 2 weeks how many there will be. So we will be promoting this because when it happened to us, nobody did anything, and we can't allow that to happen now. When it happened to us during World War II, during the Holocaust, very few people rallied, and we need to rally and speak up. And I think you may know that there are 300,000 Ukrainian Jews. I don't know if you know this, Cantor, in New York City, and they've already sent millions over there, and we hope at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. And please bring your friends to the concert. That we are not going to send millions, but we would like to have our name among the donors. So I'm going to start by telling you about probably the most well-known in the Jewish world of the Ukrainian Jews. Well, there's two. There's the Baal Shem Tov, who started the Hasidic movement and changed everything about Judaism. It's a combination of mysticism and folklore and the respect for the common man, and also Reb Nachman of Breslov, who was his great-grandson. And he lived in the city of Uman in Ukraine, where to this day, thousands and thousands of Hasidim go on a pilgrimage every year on Rosh Hashanah. You went there? Oh yeah, okay. So, yes. And the great thing about Reb Nachman is that he believed that it's our commandment to be joyous. And he was the one who invented the nigun, the wordless song, because he said sometimes the way to get out of our pain, we can't even use words. We have to use music to bring joy back into our souls. So right now, the cantor is going to sing one of those nigunim.
The title of this song is a nigun. Except it's not a true nigun, it's partially a true nigun, because a true nigun is a song without words, just syllables, right? And this piece was composed by Lazar Weiner, of blessed memory. Lazar Weiner was and will be for all time one of the greatest composers of Yiddish art song. Not folk song, high elevated art song, like Schubert or Schumann. His work has stood the test of time. He was one of my teachers at Hebrew Union College. He was born in Cherkasy, in Ukraine, and it was really something for a young Jewish boy to be offered a position in the main church choir, which his family turned down. And he joined the choir of the main synagogue in Kiev, which is the Brodsky Synagogue, which still stands to this very day. Still a vibrant synagogue. And from there, his family eventually came to New York. He was the music director for many years of Central Synagogue in New York City and taught on the faculty of Hebrew Union College. Wrote a lot of synagogue music, but his great contribution to Jewish culture is through Yiddish art song. And the song, it's a simple poem. Once upon a time, there was a poor man. What else? And all he did was quarrel with God. Wonders and wonders befell him when he sang a tune like this, Chiribim, Chiribam. And from this tune flowed wine, and he swallowed gulp after gulp. Wonders and wonders befell him. And when he sang a tune like this. And as the Jew sang and sweetness flowed, he actually leapt for joy. Wonders and wonders befell him when he sang a tune like this. And when you hear the tune, you'll sing with me. Is a Kapsen amor gewesen, pflegt nur mit Gott sich kriegen. Wunder wie Wunder hat mit ihm getroffen, wenn hat gesungen, hat samen nigen. Chiribim bam bam, chiribiri bam bam. Chiribim bam bam, oi chiribiribim bam, chiribim, chiribim, chiribim bim bam bam, ba ba bam bam. Hat von Nigen sich Wein gegossen, hat Sub noch Sub geschlungen. Wunder über Wunder hat mit ihm getroffen, wenn hat gesungen, hat sah mit Nigen. Chiribim bam bam, chiribiribim bam, chiribim bam bam, oi chiribiribim bam, chiribim, chiribam. Chiribim bim bam bam, bam bam bam. Singt der Jid uns kies Messias, ist Arsch von frei gesprungen. Wunder über Wunder hat mit ihm getroffen, wenn hat gesungen. Hat samen nigen. Chiribim bam bam, bam bam, chitty bim bam bam, oh, chitty bitty bim bam, chitty bim, chitty bim, chitty bim bim bam bam, bam bam bam.
I would like to invite Susan Frankel and Risa Davids to come up and light Shabbat candles.
We join Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei perin yagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon inhilanu, zikaron lemaseh v'reshit, ki hu yom tefilah למקראי קודש, זכר יציאת מצרים, קיוונו ובחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה ורצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. חי. Shabbat Shalom.
So, we're thinking a lot about our own feelings about what's going on in the world. And of course, we can write letters, we can offer money, we can speak in solidarity, but also how do we deal with our own feelings of despair, of worry, of fear? And so I've collected through the service poems by great poets talking about how to be strong, how to have courage, how to believe, how to have resolve. And so I'm going to start with one by Charles Bukowski called The Laughing Heart. Your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. There is a light somewhere. It may not be much light, but it beats the darkness. Be on the watch. The gods will offer you chances. Know them. Take them. You can't beat death, but you can beat death in life sometimes. And the more often you learn to do it, the more light there will be. Your life is your life. Know it while you have it. You are marvelous. The gods waited to light in you. We continue on page 20 with Lecha Dodi, the love song of the Shabbat bride.
And a Hasidic tune.
Lecha Dodi likrat kahala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kahala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kahala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kahala, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmi'anu el ha'miyuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, V'shem u'tveret v'litehila. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat v'kuvenei lecha, Ki makor habracha, Lerosh mikadem nezucha, Sof na'aseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nikabela. Hit'oreri, Ki va'orei kumi, Uri, shir daveri, Kevod Adonai alach nigela. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We rise and turn to welcome the Shabbat bride into our midst.
Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzahola, Toch emunei am sigula. Boi kala, Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kara, B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We remain standing and turn to page 28 for the Barchu.
Yai la 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 la, Yai la 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 la, Yai la 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 la, Yai la 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 la. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach, hamevorach leolam vaed. Hamevorach, hamevorach leolam vaed.
Perhaps the world ends here by Joy Harjo. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it. Babies teethe at the corners. They scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make men at it. We make women. At this table, we gossip, recall enemies, the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh at us, at our poor falling down selves, and as we put ourselves back together once again at the table. The table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We have given birth on this table, and we have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse, and we give thanks. We continue with Ahavat Olam on page 32.
Ahavat Olam et Yisrael Amcha Ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu v'shavenu v'kumenu nasiach bechukecha. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu v'shavenu v'kumenu nasiach bechukecha. ונשמח, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי חיינו ואורך ימינו ולהם נגד יומם ולילה. 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 ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד.
Baruch Shem
כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
So I was just standing here thinking that the Jews of the Ukraine are saying the Shema. Maybe it was Shabbat a little earlier, but Shabbat morning, and they're thinking about God watching over them or being protected. We know we say the Shema in times of danger when we're worried. And then I noticed in our Siddur, I don't know how many of you ever really look at the Siddur. On page 37 in the bottom, there are these beautiful teachings about each prayer. And there are 3 of them that I think we should look at this evening. And instead of me reading them, I would like someone to volunteer to read. There's one that's 1 sentence and then 2 paragraphs, 3 different readings. Who would like to read one out loud for us? Come on. Oh, good. Okay, Peg. Thank you. Beautiful. And the one underneath it, who would like to read that one? Talia. Abaya. It's a Talmudic rabbi.
Rabbi said, spread the love of God through your actions. If you yourself study and help others to do so, if your business activities are decent and trustworthy, what will people say? Have you seen the behavior of one who studies Torah? How beautiful. What a fine person. Thus Isaiah taught, you are my servant Israel. I will be glorified through you.
Yom, that's a tractate in the Talmud. But the idea is that spread love of God through your behavior, through your actions. What you say is lovely, but what you do is how you manifest God in this world. So as we continue with the Michamocha, I want to share a poem by Mary Oliver called I Worried. I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing? Even the sparrows can do it, and I am, well, hopeless. Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? This sounds just like me, I have to tell you. Am I going to get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally, I saw that worrying had come to nothing and gave it up and took my old body and went out into the morning and sang. We continue with the song of the Jewish people, the song of the sea, Michamocha, on page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, לא רצתי לראות, אוסף אל, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, זרי אנו ואמרו אדוני חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. Amen.
Please turn to page 42. So the Hashkivenu prayer is so relevant. It's such an old prayer, and yet it speaks sadly to us today and almost all the time, where we need a shelter of peace, we need protection and guardianship, a watchman over us for all the evils of the world. So I'd like us to read it in English before we sing it in Hebrew to really soak up the meaning. It's on the bottom of page 42. Please join me. Grant, O God, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel for your name's sake. Be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and peace evermore.
I'd like to offer this setting of Hashkivenu, page 42, in the style of one of my teachers, who was one of the great chazanim of the 20th century. He was born in Odessa, came to America, and became one of the most well-known virtuoso chazanim in our history, Moshe Ganshov. And this is something that I learned and studied with him. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomereinu, v'hamidenu shomereinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shelomecha, ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך, והושיענו למען שמך.
V'hagein ba'adenu v'yaser me'alenu v'yev. V'hagein ba'adenu v'yaser me'alenu v'yev v'dever. Dever v'cherev v'rav v'yagon. V'harchek mimenu avon v'afesha. Uv'etzel kinafecha tastirenu. Ki ech shomerenu umatzilenu ata. Ki elechanun verachum ata. Ushmor tzeitenu uvaenu lechayim ulshalom me'ata v'yad olam. Baruch ata Adonai Haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael. Haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. Amen.
No matter how difficult times are, we always have the Shabbos. We always have Shabbat to comfort us, to revive us, to refresh and restore us. Page 44, Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית העולם.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית העולם.
ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים, את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת.
לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם.
וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
So I was talking about Reb Nachman of Breslov and all of his teachings, and he had some very unique teachings that started in the Hasidic world, but they're relevant and they can affect us and influence us today. One of them was that he said every person has the potential to be a tzaddik. A tzaddik is a righteous person, that we all have the potential to be a tzaddik, and that there is a great tzaddik in every generation who could be the Messiah, but it depends on the rest of us whether or not that will happen. There's also a teaching in the Kabbalah that because of 36 righteous people, in every generation, the world is not destroyed. That because of these 36 righteous people, maybe one of them is you, because they don't know who they are, but they live these beautiful, humble, righteous lives. He also said to look for the good in others and look for the good in ourselves. You know, that's not that easy. We can see good in others, but we tend to sort of put ourselves down or not appreciate ourselves. Look for the good in yourself. Look at your good points. Notice them and polish them and embellish them and elevate them. And he also said that your relationship to God should be like a good friend. That you should talk to God like a good friend. You should open your heart and speak. He coined this term hitbodedut, which means sort of a individual meditation or connection with God, just you and God. He said you could go out into in nature, but it could be anywhere, to take the time every day to pour your heart out. So as we begin the Amidah, we're going to chant the first two portions together, and then we're going to have this moment of hitbodedut, this silent time for you to pour out your heart, speak, either whisper it or in your mind. Talk to God about what is on your mind right now. I think we all share some certain concerns, and who knows, maybe the power of all of our prayers will make a difference. So please rise as we turn to page 46.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chaste Avot ve'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch Ata Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah, Ata Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Ata, Rav le'Hoshia, Mashiv HaRuach u'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verafech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishene afar, micham bocha ba'al gevurot, umidom melach, Melech mimit umechaya umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata lechachayot hakol Baruch ata Adonai mechayeh hakol.
We take a few moments now for hitbodedut, for opening our heart, talking to God as a friend. When you are finished, you may be seated.
May I ask you to turn to page 54, the bottom of page 54. This is the section of our liturgy we don't often sing aloud, but it actually traditionally is supposed to be sung aloud. And this prayer at the bottom of page 54, Ritzevi Nuchatenu, is part of the conclusion of the Erev Shabbat Amidah. And traditionally and cantorally, it has a very specific collection of melodies that make it sound like this prayer, unmistakable, certainly to any cantor or anyone who grew up in a traditional shul. As soon as you hear the chazan chanting this prayer, that's Ritzevi Nuchatenu from Friday night. And the chant I'm about to sing for you is very simple, cantorial chant, except for this. There's a piano accompaniment to it. And this piano accompaniment was written by Joseph Achron. Achron was born in Lithuania in 1885, and as a 10-year-old was touring all over Europe as a virtuoso child prodigy violinist. His parents sent him to Ukraine, and he, with a few other great Jewish musicians, started the Jewish music school in Kharkiv, where he was the head of the violin and chamber music section. And after how many pogroms and anti-Semitic incidents there, his family got out and they moved to Hollywood, California. Imagine that. Where he rose to great fame as a world-renowned violinist and composer. Arnold Schoenberg was a close friend and felt that Achron was the greatest of all the sadly unknown composers from Europe. He wrote symphonies, violin concertos, chamber music, and also, being in Hollywood, began to compose film scores. His brother, Isidore, was a brilliant, renowned pianist who was Jascha Heifetz's accompanist on all of Heifetz's solo, recitals. And Achron, as a composer, was looking very forward. He wanted to advance tonal harmony, pushing and pushing, as Schoenberg would do, to reinvent Western harmony to the atonal scale. So when you hear this piece now, you're going to hear the pure chant, but Achron writes this very bold and progressive accompaniment. It was his dream. He wrote hundreds of Jewish works. In fact, one of his violin pieces for violin and piano, just called Hebrew Melody, was made world famous by Jascha Heifetz. So Ritzevi Nuchatenu, traditional chant, harmonized, accompanied by Joseph Achron.
Ba
I really appreciate, Cantor, that you bring us cantorial music that we don't often hear in Reform synagogues. This is our tradition. This is music that has been sung for hundreds of years in many cases, and I really thank you for preserving it and sharing it with us.
You know, it's my pleasure.
Yes, but I really appreciate it. We're going to take a moment now to remember those in our lives who need a blessing of healing, physical healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing with the Misha Beirach prayer. And I am so happy to invite you to stand up in person and say anyone's name out loud that you feel would like to be blessed for healing. And I will point to you and say their names. Thank you. Also would like to add, for those who are not in the room, Kayla Schwartz, Charles Schwartz, and Alan Ceroti. Page 253, Misha Beirach.
Misha Beirach, Avotenu, Mekor HaBracha, Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Beirach, Imotenu, Mekor HaBracha, Avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of bodies, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Okay. This is so strange here. Okay. All right, I'll do it like this. I just want it to be. There we go. That's good. Thank you. So my family is from Belarus. So of course I never read anything about the Ukraine because that's the way we are until now. And I learned a lot about the Ukraine and the Ukrainian Jewish community. And before I go on, how many people's families come from Ukraine? Oh my God, a lot. Wow. And I don't know why, but when I was growing up, we said the Ukraine, not Ukraine for some, right? Why? I don't know. Yes? Like saying the South. Got it. Oh, to Ukraine, to freedom. So it turns out, thank you so much, that Jews had lived in the Ukraine for so long that apparently before Ukraine was called Ukraine, Jews lived there. And in the 19th century, they started settling in the westernmost and the easternmost cities of what is now Ukraine. which is, by the way, how big is Ukraine? It's a landmass 4 times the size of New York State. That's pretty big, with 45 million residents. The Jewish history in Ukraine is checkered. Sometimes we were welcome there, and sometimes there was terrible anti-Semitism. The most terrible historical event that I know of were the Khmelnytsky pogroms in the 16th century by a Cossack leader, where they really slaughtered thousands and thousands of Jews. It was a terrible time, and it may have been an impetus, actually, that plus the Shabtai Tzvi heresy, which happened in Turkey, for Hasidism, for starting to believe, in becoming more spiritual and trying to find some kind of balm or salve to the suffering. But still, Jewish immigrants, well, they were confined to this pale of settlement where they could only live, but Ukraine was closest to Moscow. It was closest to Russia, so it was very appealing to Jews. And once that prohibition was lifted, of course, the enlightened Jews wanted to go into the cities and the universities. By 1939, there were no fewer than 1.5 million Jews in Ukraine before the Holocaust. So who are some of the famous Ukrainian Jews? Well, one of them, I didn't know this, was Shalom Aleichem. He came from Ukraine. And another one was Chaim Nachman Bialik, who is considered Israel's national poet. Golda Meir came from Ukraine. And she was from Kiev, as they say now. We used to say Kiev, it's Kiev. And Zev Jabotinsky, who is the father of the Irgun, which was the violent part of the underground Israeli army, in the beginning in the War of Independence. He was from Odessa. Okay, so this is really interesting. How many Jews are in the Ukraine today? Some say 40,000, some say 400,000, some say 60,000, 360,000, depending on who's counting, is what they say, which sounds very Jewish to me. You're Jewish, you're not Jewish, but there's a lot. I believe there's a couple 100,000 at least. Okay, so the Baal Shem Tov, as we talked about, was from the Ukraine, and his grave and the grave of Reb Nachman are destinations for Hasidim and other people to go and pray for miracles, for children, for health, for whatever you need. And 30,000 Hasidim go there every year, as I said, on Rosh Hashanah. Now, this was fascinating. I even have to read it to you because so profound was the impact of Jews on Ukraine that Yiddish was one of the 3 state languages on the paper currency of the Ukrainian People's Republic. In other words, on their dollars, on their currency, was Russian, Ukrainian, and Yiddish. That's how influential or how many Jews were there. So Yiddish was, I guess it's, a lot of, like they have English in Israel, you have English and Arabic and Hebrew. So there it was Russian, Ukrainian, and Yiddish. Okay. What? When was that? That was in the 1920s, just for a little while. So the Nazis and their collaborators murdered 1 million Ukrainian Jews, and mainly in killing pits. And we know about Babi Yar, which was this horrible pit in the forest where 30,000 people were shot. And apparently just this week, it was hit by a bomb from Russia, the Babi Yar Memorial. So after, the fall of communism, many thousands of Jews left for Israel, but thousands stayed in Ukraine. And it's a really, I didn't know this, vibrant Jewish community. Kiev has several Orthodox communities and a progressive one. It has an American-style Jewish community center, and it has Jewish cultural clubs for young adults. Odessa has 2 JCCs, 2 Jewish book clubs, a Jewish museum, and a Jewish studies festival that are usually booked to capacity. I had no idea. Now, also, in the Jewish community of Dnipro, D-N-E-P-R-O, it's like the capital, apparently, unofficial capital for Ukrainian Jewry. And in 2012, they built a 22 two-story cultural and business center called Menorah. It's the largest Jewish community center in Europe to the cost of $100 million, which is more than the Audrey Ermis Pavilion. And it's shaped like a Jewish menorah, the building. And this is all in the Ukraine. I really didn't know that. Other well-known Ukrainian Jews are Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who, really started Chabad and had it sent all his emissaries all over the world. The Cantor was surprised at this one. The figure skater Oksana Bayul, who was raised Orthodox but discovered she was Jewish, and when she was 25, she converted to Judaism. She reclaimed her Jewish identity. Selman Waxman, who discovered many antibiotics and led to the first successful treatment of tuberculosis and won the 1952 Nobel Prize in Medicine for his contributions. And Waldemar Hafkine, a microbiologist who developed the first vaccines for cholera and bubonic plague. Both of them are Ukrainian. Natan Sharansky, as we know, the famous refusenik, who protested, against the oppression of Jews and led Jews, opened the gates and then went to Israel and became a politician. Vladimir Horowitz, the pianist, and Isaac Stern, the violinist, both Ukrainian Jews. And this is a good one. Anybody ever hear of Jan Koum? So Jan Koum was born in 1976, and he moved to California and developed WhatsApp. So he's a Ukrainian Jew. Boris Aronson, who was also born in Kiev, and he was one of the most famous scenic designers. He came to America, he designed for the Yiddish Theater and then for Broadway, and won, really famous scene designer, won 10 Tonys for his his designs. And finally, there are many more, the president of Ukraine today, Vladimir Zelensky, who was an actor and a comedian and a performer, and he went to law school, and I read that he played a president in a show, and then people loved him so much that he's now president and really being incredibly courageous. Did you want to say something, Cantor? Do you want to add?
I was thinking, next Friday night we're going to devote some more of our attention to similar ideas in music, and a Shalom Sekunda by Mir bist du schön. Thank you very much, right? Also Ukrainian Jew, and wrote that wonderful show, Land of Milk and Honey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah,
So who wants to share something about your heritage in Ukraine? Do you know where you came from? What city you came from? I know my family, I know the city from Belarus, which is not very happy with them at the moment. But does anyone want to share anything about there's so many Ukrainian Jewish people here are hailing from Ukraine. Do you know anything about your ancestry? Do you know? You come from Kyiv. Do you know anything about your family there? They're all here.
Right.
Early 1900s. Apparently, my family was quite wealthy, and then the Russian Revolution came, and so they lost everything and came to America. Yes? Odessa? Couldn't wait to get away from the communists, yes. Yes? You're right? So Chaim Nachman Bialik.
The Declaration of Independence of Israel was declared and read to the whole nation from that little house in Sderot Rothschild.
Oh my goodness. So did you all hear what she said? Chaim Nachman Bialik, the poet, the national poet of Israel, lived around the corner from Penina, and this little house is where they read the Declaration. It's a museum. He lived around the corner, and that's where they read the Declaration of Independence of Israel from that house around the corner from where she grew up. Anyone else? Yes. 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 Your family was from, yes. We saw that in the Museum of the Diaspora. Any other stories you want to share about Ukraine or anything? Do we know what Ukrainian food is? Does anybody eat Ukrainian food?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
Galushki.
And what is that?
It's like a little pelmeni, but it's with cottage cheese or fruits like cherry, berries, and apple sauce inside. It's
pasta,
It's not pasta. It's a small like dumplings.
I like a
ones.
dumpling, but a sweet dumpling.
Yeah, and also the drink, alcohol drink, harilka, which is like a vodka, but it's a self-made.
Vodka, yeah, for sure. You're not from, are you from Ukraine, Leo?
Yeah, my mother's side, all from Kiev, Podol, and I went to Kiev for all my childhood every summer to get fed. Because the Muscovites, they're considered to be inferior in terms of food. Ukrainian food is wonderful.
Leo, you told me before the service tonight that was it your great uncle?
Yeah, one of my great-grandparents was a rabbi on Podol, and he was related to, he was, I think, a cousin of Sholem Aleichem. So I'm related to Sholem Aleichem. Yeah.
Bloodlines. So
I would add one last thing. This is a little esoterica, but you know, the traditional cantorial modes, right, for the different services, the different sounds, to some extent they're based on the Greek modes, right? The Dorian mode in cantorial music is known as Ukrainian Dorian, because there were many, many great chazanim in the Ukraine, and as traditional cantorial music was developed, it's not exactly the same as the Greek mode, but it's called Ukrainian Dorian. La la la. That's Ukrainian Dorian.
thank you. So this is just the first of a number of programs about Ukraine, and our hearts are with the Ukrainian people. We pray for peace. We pray that some sanity might prevail, though I don't know if that's possible. We're hoping. And it's amazing how all of Europe has unified together to fight this and to help the Ukrainian people. And that's the good sign. And so we're going to hope that things are going to resolve sooner than later. Before we conclude our service, I just want to make a few announcements. So this Sunday at 2 o'clock and Monday at 7:30 is the Braid, which is the former Jewish Women's Theater. They're doing a wonderful show here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. It's called Star Spangled Sabra. And it's a show about Israelis who have moved to America and their experiences here, you know, being Israeli and American, and the tension between that. It's humorous, it's moving, it's funny, and we hope you'll join us. This Wednesday, so I have seen this amazing documentary, and now it's available on our website. It's called Amen, Amen, Amen. And it is a documentary, it's just an hour long, about the writing of the first Torah and giving it to the Crown Prince of the United Arab Emirates. And it's an amazing story of how the Emirates, believe it or not, are so welcoming to Jews right now, and this new flourishing Jewish community in the Emirates. And we invite you to watch the documentary, and then on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, the chief rabbi of the United Arab Emirates and the filmmaker are going to join us for a discussion about what's going on and about I was so amazed. They're building also this huge plaza there called the Abrahamic Plaza with a big church, mosque, and synagogue. There's kosher food there. The welcoming and the openness to Jews is fascinating. So I encourage you to watch the documentary and join us. And then, as I said before, on March 20th, you'll be hearing this a lot, Standing Up to a Modern Day Haman, a classical Purim concert fundraiser for Ukraine, Sunday, March 20th, here at 4 o'clock, with acclaimed virtuosos Jason Lippman, who's a cellist in the LA Philharmonic, Karen Schweitzer, his wife, who is a flutist, has played with the Philharmonic, as well as with Yo-Yo Ma's Silk Road, Dennis Karmazin, who's a university synagogue member, who is a cellist, who has performed with the American Ballet, the Bolshoi and Kirov Ballets, and the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra. And Vanessa Fadial, who is a pianist, a classical pianist, and a professor of music at the Colburn School. And we're going to be having an amazing...
Extraordinary music. I'll give just a few names. Prokofiev, Flute Sonata. Alexander Krein was another one of the great Jewish composers from the Ukraine, classical composer. What concert would be complete without some Bach? We just have to have Bach. He was not from Ukraine. I'm going to sing a couple of Yiddish songs by two of the other great composers of Yiddish art song, Moses Milner, who's born in Ukraine.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be really exquisite.
And it's Purim, so we're going to read some of the Megillah, and we're going to have a beautiful reception of Ukrainian delicacies and hamantashen. So we hope you'll join us for that. So now we turn to moments of memory as we prepare for Kaddish and those who are no longer with us. And I'm going to start by remembering those who passed away during Shloshim, during the past 30 days. If there's anyone who is in mourning for these 30 days, we invite you to stand now. Anybody? Okay. Anybody who has a yortzeit, we invite you to stand now. So we start with those in the past 30 days. Solly Berman, Saul Block, Milton Cohen, Betty Denitz, Alexandra Dolian, Stephen Goldinger, Stanley Goldklang, Yuet Shun Ho-Chan, Taji Newman, Mehdi Poursalimi, Teresa Shapiro, Sarah Lynn Sidley, Miriam Spurtis, Mike Turbo, Nancy Zeman. We remember those whose yortzeits, the anniversaries of their death, took place this past week. Bill Abrams, Dorothy Adlin, Alfred Adler, Jack Armel, Sidney Beckerman, Alfred Burke, Leonard Berman, Robert Berry, Carol Ann Brand, Ruth Bronte, Lillian Brostoff, Martin Brown, William Brunman, Irving Birkin, Norma Candib, Sylvia Chiswick, Stella Codd, Menachem Davidson, Marion Immergluck Denitz, Shmuel Dick, Herbert Ehrlich, Menashe Eliachar, Helen Felsenthal, Doris Fink, Irving Fink, Max Martin Fisher, Harry Fleischman, Monty Friedman, Maurice Gersh, Harry Gilfenbane, Marley Goldbacher, Robert Goldberg, Marlene Goldblum, Charlotte Goldman, Bram Goldsmith, Annette Gologorsky, Giza Gray, Stanley Grinstein, Nina Habert, Harry Harris, Edith Hecht, Jack Hertz, Rabbi Yehuda Heskioff, Evelyn Honoroff, Louis Jacobs, Jean Campbell Jones, Arthur Josephs, Judy Carmen, Iran Carmen, Ibrahim Kashani, Leon Klappholtz, Elizabeth Klein, Helen Klein, Gordon Copald, Elizabeth Korgina, Marcus Leib, Jay Leannes, Oscar Lerman, David Levitch, Jean Lieber, Ruth Linick, Olive Lipkin, Sidney Loeb, Mildred Lomask, Nicholas Lubin, Leo Morantz, Stan Margulies, Lillian Mark, Deanna Mason, Marguerite Perkins Moutner, Murray Miller, Shirley Oakham, Maxwell Bernard Perkins, Michael Polivoy, Arpad Rev, Marshall Rissman, Ann Bessie Rosen, Barbara Fingerhut Rothschild, Milton Rowan, Joyce Rubenstein, Rhoda Samuel, Ruth Savin, Jacqueline Rose Schiff, Harry Schneider, Hal Seeger, Albert Serlin, Sarah Shaw, Leo Sirota, Alfred Skluth, Bertha Skolnick, Jonathan Slott, Ruth Sonis, Nathan Spielberg, Sam Steinberg, Stephen Tech, Janet Tenzer, Linda Tepper, Robert Valaise, Albert Wagner, Alexander Wasserman, Shirley Weinstein, Helene Groman Weiss, Milton Weiss, Helen Weiner, Audrey Woolworth, Eleanor Yowitz. Are there any other names to add? We also remember those who gave their lives defending the United States of America and the State of Israel, those who have died in senseless violence, the war in the Ukraine and other places, and by disease, and anyone who has no one to say Kaddish for them. Please turn to page 294 and rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, v'yalma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chai echon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'mei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, damiram b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'ramav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom, shalom imramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom, shalom imramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. Amen. Oseh shalom, shalom imramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
Please
shalom,
join us for a little nosh outside before you leave. We'd love to.
We want to thank our fantastic musicians here tonight. Bill Beck at the piano, Hope Easton on cello, and Leo Shelyapov on clarinet and flute and whatever else. Pick another instrument.